Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Bull. A great episode. Obviously, this episode is about, literally the title of the episode is Justice for Cable, because it's all about, because for one, we end up finding out that accident that Cable died in with the bridge situation, that wasn't an accident. It seemed like it might have been some structure issues. It's like, no, it was actually a bomb planted. It was like a terrorist attack. And the sucky thing is all the terrorists associated with it were all killed by the CIA upon a raid. And, it leaves Bull very conflicted. It's actually kind of interesting because he actually drops by Marissa's place in the middle of the night where Greg and Bull had their first meeting. I thought things were going to play out a little bit different because he's just kind of like, yeah, I know who you are. And just like, oh, all the midnight calls. So this happened a lot. And Marissa was like, no. And Bull's like, yeah. And he's like, do you want a drink? And then Marissa's like, no. And he's like, yeah. So it's like they actually had a little sit down and everything. So I thought that was pretty impressive. Like, I thought like there'd be a little more animosity, but I think it's kind of like, hey, both sides of her world are kind of coming together. Even later on, Marissa's kind of giving them a little like guff about it because she's kind of like, yeah, like when I'll see you tomorrow. Not like, he's like, what are you doing? Oh, you're talking about, that's, he's like, come on, you got to admit, that was pretty cool. It was kind of fun. And he was like, and she's leaving, and she's like, see you tomorrow. Do not sleep in here. Do not drink, just, don't stay here too late. And he's like, oh, can I have some friends over? Come on. Daddy said it was okay. She's like, good night, John Boy. And he's like, good night, Elizabeth. Funny. I think it's funny because like I don't actually know the specific reference. I think I might, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'm not going to say, because the only reason why I know it because Family Guy made a reference, and it's one of those things where I've talked about it before. It's always funny because I like Family Guy jokes are funnier when you understand the reference. I mean, even without understanding the reference, the joke is still funny, but it's just kind of interesting. So basically, Bull is going after the bank. Kind of going back to the story, he's going after the bank that basically funded and laundered the money for the terrorist group to do what they needed to do, and it ends up being this banking system known as Thoreau Financial. They've been investigated multiple times, but they kind of come up clean. And so Bull decides, instead of going after Thoreau Financial specifically, he's going to go after the man at the top. It's Honecker, it's CEO. Interestingly enough, the actress who plays his lawyer is the actress who plays Angela on Power, which I think is interesting. She's a lawyer too, isn't it? I'm pretty sure she is, or at least like an ADA or something like that. I don't really know Power that well. Like, I've seen bits and pieces. Like, I know the show vicariously through my sister and mom. They're big fans of the show, so I can't help but see like stuff here and there, but I've never sat down and watched any of the show really myself. So to me, I just thought that was just kind of interesting. I was like, oh wow, that's, I don't know, it just kind of caught me by surprise. In retrospect, now I'm sitting here thinking about it, because I kept thinking that actress who plays Cable's mom, she looks familiar to me too. Wasn't she a lawyer in the original Law and Order? Wasn't she one of the earlier lawyers? I think she was, but I'm pretty sure she is. So I don't know, maybe that's just maybe me just thinking about it too much. But I think it is. I kept thinking like I've seen her and stuff before, and I feel like it might be Law and Order. But nevertheless, this is all about making them pay. And I like what Bull went to her and kind of told her how it is. He's like, hey, the fact of the matter is there's going to be a lot of reporters, people coming to you. Like, you're going to have to relive all of this. You don't have to show up in court a lot, but kind of letting her know the lay of the lands. But for her, he's like, maybe you want to talk to your husband about it. He's like, I love my husband, but he's not Cable's dad. So this decision comes down to me. And she's like, make them hurt. And Bull's like, I'm going to do my best to make sure that they do. So it turns into this interesting, long thing, because it's like, obviously you're going up against such a large group, and they're trying to bury Team Tact in tact and paperwork and stuff like that, because it's the business thing to do. They even at one point try to bribe, like unofficially, and the guy didn't say that he was with Thoreau Financial, but basically it's kind of like, oh, Ellen, Cable's mom, it's like, oh, maybe you should drop this. You get like a large sum of money. But for her, it's like, no. Like, it's kind of, the fact is that they're willing to pay means that they know they're on the losing side of this. So it's kind of like, okay, yeah, they're worried, that's good. But Bull was like, they haven't hurt yet. There's also the jury selection. I really like that riddle. I thought that was kind of an interesting riddle. I like that. you had Benny being like, okay, I'm gonna tell you guys a riddle, and like John's lawyer goes, Your Honor, and the judge was like, actually, I like riddles, so he can go on. And Benny's like, thank you, Your Honor. I was like, I can't believe the judge literally said, oh no, I actually like riddles. Go ahead. I'm sure that was him just being funny too. But legitimately, I like that riddle too. It's kind of a conundrum of like, oh yeah, like when it comes to it, you have a guy has a fox, a duck, and a bag of beans, and he can only get one of them across the water at a time. So what does he do? If he takes the duck, if he takes the bag of beans, the fox eats the duck. If he takes the fox, the duck eats the beans. So, and then like, so who has an answer? And a whole bunch of people raise their hand, and Bull's like, yeah, all those people strike them. It's like, and even Benny mouths the words, all of them? And, Marissa's like, they all raise their hands. It's like, yeah, but there's no answer to it. He's like, they don't know the answer. They're all just saying that they do, So I thought that was kind of like a little interesting thing. So. All the while, what makes this case interesting too is, well, for one, they kind of brought it up early in the episode that Bull hasn't replaced Cable, because for him, it's just, he feels wrong about it. And even Marissa understands. She's like, I get it, like how weird you feel about it, but like, we need a new Cable to kind of fill that role. It's been like 3 weeks. He eventually replaced Cable, like when, he fired her. And so, but obviously like this circumstance is a little bit different. I was actually kind of surprised when we saw like Taylor dancing, like, and just kind of those funny things you kind of think about. You're like, yeah, you probably had to pay I feel like you probably had to pay a good chunk of money to play that, yeah, Lil Jon, Usher, and Ludacris song. Like, it's like you probably had to pay a good chunk of money for that just to have the rights to use that, even for that little bit in your episode. But for whatever reason, in the back of my head, I was like, is that supposed to be like Cable because I actually don't remember what kind of music Cable was in. I was like, I don't know, I guess because the whole black hair and everything just made me think of Cable for whatever reason. I don't know why. Like, I'm stupid. Like, let's just leave it at that. So I was like, oh, is it going to be like, because I was thinking like, oh, are they going to make it so it like, he's haunted by Cable's ghost or something like that? I was like, oh, that'd be kind of interesting. Not haunted, but just like he sees Cable throughout the episode. I thought that might have been the direction they want to go. Not like it has like a supernatural side to it, but it's just kind of all in his head. His grief is manifesting in a certain way. Just like it did that one time where he heard Cable's voice and he kind of responded to it, and it was like, oh yeah, Cable's gone, so. But it turns out to be someone from Homeland that Marissa knows, named Taylor. And I really like Taylor. She's very good at what she does. I live in like, she's calling out everybody's name, and Chunk is like, yeah, aside from just getting my name wrong, she's really good. But they only have her for a limited amount of time because honestly, because she's working for Homeland, she actually can't make money doing other things. So like working with TAC, she wouldn't be able to do that if it meant like getting paid for it, which is interesting. Because I guess that's a general job thing in general. This is kind of interesting that like while certain things are happening, you can't get a little bit of money on the side, which I think is, it is what it is. I guess it all comes down to the business, and maybe that kind of applies to all government jobs. Either way, I thought that was kind of interesting. So everything she's doing is mainly as a favor to Marissa. Other than that, there's the whole Adam situation. He was a coder that basically went to Thoreau Financials. They actually kind of sought him out, specifically Haneker did, and basically he basically did some coding to basically make it so that it can get around U.S. government like systems. Basically, the system that would look out for like money laundering and stuff like that, like hiding the fact is that they're kind of moving large sum of money, like the system that would catch like, oh yeah, like irregular, like large sums of money being moved around and stuff like that. He kind of testified and everything, and it's just like immediately everything kind of didn't look good. For John, I was like, oh, because I was actually surprised. I was like, man, this is going really well for Team TAT, because I'm like, yeah, like everything he's saying, like the other side doesn't have like a rebuttal trying to use it against him, because he signed an NDA, and it's like, oh yeah, you would probably be in trouble for doing this, but for him it's like, I'm dying. There's no way they're going to. What more could they do to me? And the moment that came out of his mouth, there was a little part of my brain wondering like, well, which sadly later on he dies, which. Even Bull later on is kind of like, yeah, there's a way to kind of fake that and make it look like it was just natural causes. Because it's just kind of like, oh man, he just happens to die the day after, before he could finish his testimony. And because of the way everything works, the jury has to ignore his testimony, even though they don't really canon. Like, it's always interesting because it's like you can't really ignore something like that once you know it. But I guess it's just kind of like because he didn't finish his testimony. If he had finished it and didn't die, like, but because there were still facts and his testimony was left unfinished, I guess that invalidates in the eyes of the law his previous statement. So it was kind of interesting. And it's just kind of like, they just happened to find him dead. The moment he didn't show up, I was like, either he's dead or they paid him off. And it's like, yep, he's dead. It's like, there we go. So that severely sucked, especially because they were offering, like, prior to this, because they were offering, like, oh yeah, we'll pay your client $25 million. And that's what I think is so scummy about John too. It's like, Honecker was kind of like, okay, this is just kind of a nuisance, bad PR and stuff like that. You're the one that was going around there. We're working with the CIA, the government and stuff like that to see how this happened, why this happened, make sure it never happens again. It's like, you piece of crap, you were neck deep in the situation and you're just sitting up there pretending like it has nothing to do with like, we're doing everything we can, because he even says it later on when he was on the stand where he was basically like, hey, no day goes by that I wish that, we could have done more. But looking back, it's like, in all honesty, we did the best that we could. There was nothing more we could do. And it's like, could you just stop being a terrible human being? So, because all that kind of shows you just how, like, him trying to pay it off and he's like, oh, this is a nuisance. It's like, you're literally talking about one of the family members to the mother of one of the 37 people that died on that bridge, and you're just acting like, oh, this is a nuisance. Once again, kind of just shows how much of an asshole you are, but maybe that's just me. But Bull was kind of like, oh yeah, Ellen's not going to take that deal, nor should she, because I'll make sure she does, and I'll tell her like, oh, don't do it, and she'll listen to me. And it's like, because it's like, what's it going to take for this to end? And it's kind of like you feeling the same way my client does every time she walks by her daughter's room. And it's the same way all those other families feel too. It also turns out that Taylor, doing kind of cheating again, she found a picture of Ivan and Honecker together, showing that they do know each other. Like, because I love that even Benny set it up. He was like, oh, you sure you don't know Ivan? He's like, I'm positive. It's like, okay, let me show you this. Because the crazy thing about that situation is, like, she was like, okay, I gave this to you because, like, you need to know. And it's like, I wanted you to know, hey, you were 100% right. You were wondering if maybe, this is 100%. It's 100% evidence that, yeah, you were right, that they were connected to this terrorist group. No more. She wanted to give Bull some answers. Granted, it would be, she got it by illegal means, so using it would mean that she would get arrested. Because I thought it was going to be like, oh, you can't use it because the evidence was gathered illegally, which I guess that argument could be made at one point or another. But mainly, it's like, if it came back, she would be the one that ends up going to jail. Because maybe the only way to validate the evidence would be to admit how they got it in the first place, which would mean putting her in trouble. So she's like, I'm gonna take that photo, and Bull's like, no, you're not. It's like, she's like, you can't use it. He's like, I'm not going to, but you're not going to take the photo. I'm like, oh, he's going to use it, isn't he? And the moment he was about to use it in court, I was like, and even Marissa's trying to stop him, and it's like, the photo goes live and uses that. And I love John being like, yeah, honestly, I don't know if that's me or not. And he's like, you don't know if that's you. That person looks awfully like you. But like, hypothetically, let's say, okay, it isn't you and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like he's doing everything he can to cover himself. But basically it turns out the photo was leaked to all these other like outlets and stuff like that. So it's kind of widespread on the internet. Even Bull saying like, by the time, like all this time we're arguing back here, the jury's probably seeing it up there. So it's like, why don't we just ask John himself? Because he'd be the one to be able to determine the authenticity of these photos. And it's like, yeah, I guess so. But when it was all said and done, I thought that was pretty, like, it's like they end up winning in the end. I'm like, yeah. And it's like, oh, but he has to pay $100 million. But then John doesn't look that worried about it. That's why Benny was kind of like, yeah, I don't feel that good about it. Luckily, Ellen kind of got the victory she wanted. I was halfway expecting her to walk up and say something to John, but she didn't. So, but they won and everything worked out in the end, getting justice for Cable. But to a certain extent, it's kind of like, well, all the money that company made, because basically the money that was laundered through them, like, the money he was Ivan ended up putting in equaled up like billions in the long running things. So, but like 100 million wouldn't be much to him. That's why he's not too worried about it. But with everything kind of put out there, he was arrested because the photos being leaked like that kind of gave the CIA and just the government what they needed to go after him. So Bull's like, now do you feel better? And Benny's like, yep. So that's, just true justice in the end. And then Bull goes to visit Taylor. And Taylor brings up an interesting situation because I was thinking she was going to be pissed about him about the whole photo thing. Because he's like, yeah, everyone at TAC thinks I'm the one that leaked the photo, but it turns out it was actually Taylor because she wanted to do that because if it was if it was released in that manner, there would be no like going back, trying to tie it back to her. So her job was essentially secured. So she wouldn't kind of face, I'm saying job security. She wasn't worried about being fired. It was more so like the legal ramifications for it. And she basically comes to the conclusion that I kind of thought so too. She even asked Bull, like, if I hadn't done what I'd done, would you have still released that photo anyway? Bull doesn't really answer. And she's like, you would have. And I kind of get the feeling he would. I'm like, yeah, if it meant getting justice for Cable, he would have been willing to do anything. And he kind of apologizes. But for Taylor, it's the fact of the matter is you did that because, it was a very bad man who did something very, very bad. You were trying to take down a very bad person. And not only did he do something very bad, he did something very bad to someone that was a part of your team. And she's like, honestly, if I wouldn't mind working for someone who would do that, because it's like if they would go that far for someone a part of their team, that means they would go that far for me. And so Bull's kind of like, oh, so, and she's like, yeah, I'll work for you, but obviously my job for you will come second. But I will give my all to make you the second most important thing. And Bull's like, hey, I can take that. So that's kind of interesting, which is also the development of like, she's also be the only parent on well, no, I forgot Chunk. Chunk's doing the whole parent thing too, but he's got like a teenage/young adult daughter. So just as complicated situation as like, Taylor having a little kid. But I thought that was kind of an interesting development. So I'm very interested, I like that because it's kind of like, this way he kind of already gets a test work to be like, hey, this shows you what kind of person we're getting. And it's like she understands, she, melds well with the team. So obviously this is like different circumstances. She wasn't officially working with them. So maybe things will change. You'd assume things would kind of be the same. But I'm very interested to see Taylor, sticking around. I think, she's a nice successor to Cable. And so I think that was kind of a nice way to kind of close this all off, Cable's story like this. I kind of wasn't expecting that just because I was thinking like, oh, it was kind of an accident. And because initially it didn't even cross my mind like, oh, like I thought it was like, oh, going after the building, like the people who build the bridge. Because I thought it was like, oh no, they kind of went skimpy on some stuff. I thought that's ultimately what the story was about. Like I said, I saw the title to the episode before now. So that's why I just assumed that. I didn't realize that there was an old terrorist angle to it. So that was really kind of a surprise in that regard. So we'll see in any shape or form whether anything else Cable related comes up. But I think this was like the closing chapter to that. So, but I'm very interested to see what happens in the next episode. Kind of the team going forward and everything like that. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.